Thanks everybody for joining. We really appreciate you attending. We're going to get started here in a couple seconds. Just to give you guys a heads up, for those of you that this is maybe your first time to a Digital Marketing Quarterly, or you've been here multiple times, welcome back. Just kind of want to tell you a little bit about what it is, what we do. And so my name's Kevin Getch. I'm the founder and director of digital strategy at Web4. And I won't talk about us as much as what we do, but I'm also on the board for an organization called SEM PDX, which is a nonprofit that is really focused on supporting the digital marketing community. So business owners, in-house marketers, and agencies that want to continue growing in their knowledge and kind of coming together as a community. And so if you haven't checked that out, check out sempdx.org. Lots of great events that we do on an ongoing monthly basis, as well as different groups and things like that. We've taken a lot of that online during everything, as everyone has, hopefully. But there wasn't really anything like SEMPDX in the local area in Vancouver where we're based. And so I wanted to get something together where we could all have some community, we could share knowledge, we could have different speakers from a number of different agencies and different groups in-house come in and kind of just share their knowledge and talk. So that's just a little bit about us. We make sure that we do this at least once a quarter. Sometimes we do it more often. But yeah, that's the little pitch on Digital Marketing Quarterly. If you haven't joined the membership via Meetup, make sure you join via there. Looks like we got quite a great group here. I recognize a lot of the names, so thanks for joining. With that, I'm going to go ahead and just let you guys know that at the end, I'll leave some time for questions, and there is a Q&A feature. I'm sure many of you are now familiar with Zoom. You can use the Q&A feature near the end, and I'll kind of ask those questions to Kyle on your behalf, and he'll answer them for you, potentially.
On that note, wait a minute, I didn't realize I was supposed to leave time for questions. This is going all 90 minutes, Kevin.
You got to have at least a minute in there. So, so for those of you who don't know Kyle, I feel that's very few of you, because Kyle is, well known in this world. He had 25 years at the Columbian as a sports in the sports department, writing for the Columbian, and before he kind of moved to the advertising and writing side, and then he decided, you know what, I want to go to Web4 and spend another 25 years over there. So, he's kind of, we're excited to have him. He's got a lot of great skills and background in writing, as well as a lot of punchy puns and one-liners, which I'm sure you'll hear some of those. So yeah, with that, I will go ahead and pass over to you, Kyle, and I might.
All right. Well, Kevin, you just gave away half of my presentation there, talking about my background. So there'll be plenty of time for Q&A afterwards. All right. So without further ado, let's hop into this. Let's make sure. How are we looking?
Looking good. All
right. So this is compelling content. The what, why, and how. I'm Kyle Greenwood. I work for Web4. Again, Kevin stole all my thunder there. So I guess let's just jump into it. So what exactly is content? It was kind of hard. For me, content is a relatively new construct. So I switched out content with the word art. And you can see up here these three well-respected gentlemen have a lot to say about what they think content is, or rather art, and what it isn't. Because it can be a lot of different things to a lot of different people. It's informational. Well, for my background, as Kevin said, in the newspaper industry, it was mostly written for information, getting words out, letting people know who won the high school Friday night football game or the Tuesday afternoon golf match. But beyond those walls, obviously, advertising, marketing, even emergency information. We get the Amber Alerts and what have you. It just pretty much, content is I guess almost could be everything right now. If you looked at what Kevin and I, our backgrounds, even before we started the presentation, the content in my background was a single picture of a dog. Kevin's background was a little bit more ornate content-wise. So it can be many different things for many different people. At the beginning, though, say 40,000 years ago, the first real concrete, for lack of a better term, instances of communication or content were generally believed to be the cave paintings. You see example here. What were they used for? Well, pretty much information. They believed it was ways that they would put images up there, say that these animals were good to eat. These plants were not good to eat. If they were solitary animals, any other information that they could, obviously helpful information on maybe even how to kill a woolly mammoth with one shot. But the problem is that, the thing with the content back then, there was still, there's always going to be a comment section. Nothing you do about it. There's always going to be some guy cracking jokes about Zog Jones. So the comment sections really aren't any better than they are now. Fast forward a couple millennium and the Gutenberg press came along. It was introduced, or I guess established in 1440. So, a good 600 years ago. And in 1441, the first letters to the editor began appearing. The kind of comment section of the day. Fast forward another, I don't know, centuries, and those printing presses were kind of shrunk down into key typewriters. So each individual wooden block that you used to have to put on the press was now contained in the keyboard here, and you could type in all the letters and numbers and punctuation that you needed. It would go into the ink ribbon onto the paper, and there you go. From there, they try to improve it a little bit more by liquid paper, because everybody makes mistakes. I make all kinds of mistakes. So for me, after the Gutenberg press, liquid paper was probably the second best invention for human communication. Then we have the electronic keyboards, basically the same thing. I call it a keyboard. It's a typewriter. So I guess this newfangled technology today has finally been ingrained in my nearly 50-year-old brain. And these things even had the whiteout built into them, so to speak. This was actually my first computer. My mother had it when she was going back to get her PhD at Portland State. The old Apple IIe, and basically all I used it for was wanting to restore a previously saved game. I was not using it for content. Today, you can see here kind of a little bit of a dated photo, but of all the different smartphones, the technology, all of basically everything from the Gutenberg press to today can be found on these little tiny contraptions. But still, I don't know that it necessarily helped move the content forward any more than the cave paintings did. Okay, oops. Lost my point here. Okay, so hi, I'm Kyle Greenwood, and this is going to take up the bulk of the presentation. It was me talking about myself, but Kevin pretty much ran through everything. But just to kind of touch on that a little bit more, with my background, I was used to calling what I did editorial. Editorial was basically what the newsroom produced. It's not just editorial opinion page content. Editorial covered everything. A1 stuff, features, sports. It was basically what the newsroom produced, and then everything else, the other half of the And so I've been part of both. For when it comes to the newspaper industry, I've been part of the good guys and the dark side. I'll let you guys fight over which is which. So we've kind of content is king, or it could be a duke or a queen or a duchess, depending on your predilections. But like I said, it means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. just content, general use, marketing tools, way to get information to the different people, all types of different ways of doing it. And that could be videos, blog posts, vlogs, podcasts. It's like I said before, content is everything. So now you know what content is and why we use it. But it's always the how, on the other hand, that can kind of get people stuck a little bit. I've been in presentations about content, and everyone knows what to do with the content once it's created. Optimize it, throw in some meta tags, whatever else the SEO folks do to make it more searchable, and optimize it some more. But how do you get that content in the first place? At the start, you had folks like our hero Alex here, the Black Hatters, that would do whatever they could to quote unquote satisfy the searchers, what the searchers are searching for. And it was a matter of when I first started kind of paying attention to this, it was they would take a bunch of keywords. The keywords could be anything, whether, basketball scores, Muhammad Ali, liquid paper, typewriters. They would, all the words they could think of, put it at the end of one of their pages, make the text the same color as the background so you wouldn't read it. And then when the search engines went out to try to find something, they would get tripped up on these little keyword stuffing that were hidden from the eyes of probably 95% of the people looking at the pages. And as is the case, once there's something shiny and new, there's always going to be a bunch of people that try to use it to their advantage. And at the time, search engines just couldn't keep up because there were a lot more of us than there were of them, until Google. What an adorable logo! Look at that thing. It's hard to believe that that this little logo has grown to basically create its own atmosphere when it comes not just for marketing, but for just about anything. It's a verb. There are other search engines, I guess, like Bing and Yahoo. Now, here on my notes, it says here to pause for laughter. So I can't hear you, so I'll just assume that everyone's laughing at that. Because we all know Google is the place to be. What I think the last thing I saw was 95% of this. That can change at any given moment. But for the most successful digital marketers, they know how to work within the framework, and they also know how to adapt when that framework changes. With my background, content was, like I said earlier, is a relatively new construct. Coming to Web 4, I had 25 and a half years of experience writing, because I also worked at the Longview Daily News for 6 months before working at the Columbian. Everything was, and you can't see me, but I'm doing the air quote text. Obviously, that was wrong now, especially in the digital marketplace. The newspaper always kept the two separated, editorial and advertising. But when it comes to digital marketing, everything runs together. Everything's on the plate. It was a little bit hard for me to kind of get my head around at the start, because I still kind of wrote as if I was a journalist. But as we know, as I've come to learn about marketing, you have a little bit more wiggle room. So I guess there is a way you can teach old dogs new tricks. I began to learn there are pieces of content that beget other pieces of content. Pillar content is a huge way to help digital marketers with their content plans. For example, this presentation itself. We were talking about it, and right now, just me talking to you, that's a piece of content. We're recording this, so we can put it up on our site. People can come see it. That's another piece of content. There's a bunch of, even the bio, my biography. We can type that up, put it on our website. There's a piece of content. Everything I'm going through here can be broken up into other pieces of content. So this whole presentation is known as pillar content. So it's really an all-encompassing term. But even before all that, everyone wrote. We've been writing since we were told we had to write in kindergarten all the way up through high school. And for the most part, my journalistic pedigree has served me well. But one piece of advice really stuck out to me in my travels. Know your audience. With the Black Hatters, the ne'er-do-wells in charge, the audience didn't really matter to them. They just threw a bowl of pasta up on the wall and see what eyes would stick. And kind of an interesting, there's a point to this story. There's an interesting kind of twist that when I first started, when the internet first started coming around, there always seemed to be, no matter what you searched for, a common theme in the top search results. There's a scene in Tropic Thunder where our hero, Kevin Sandusky, the fellow on the left there, is talking to no one in particular about the Blu-ray HD DVD wars. And the people that were in the industry were wondering who would win those particular wars. Would it be because of refresh rates or less pixelation from one medium to the other? But actually, the people who decided between Blu-ray and high-def DVDs came down to gamers and the adult industry. And that's kind of the way it was for the internet. Whenever I would, here's where the anecdote comes into play. Back when I was in the newspaper, I talk about the newspaper a lot, obviously. The general manager, or the managing editor at the time, asked me to come with him and a couple of reporters. I was in the new media department at this time to kind of talk about journalism in all its forms. That includes the new media department, where we always like to say that we were one of the first 7 newspapers to have a website, which I always think is kind of funny. Why would you? Everyone knows you're number 7. I mean, why else would you say you were one of the first 7? You wouldn't say you were one of the first 7 newspapers if you were like the 3rd newspaper. You'd say you were in the top 3. Anywho, we were the number 7. We were the 7th paper to do that. So we came in. We talked about the general processes of writing for print, and then it came to me, and I talked a little bit about writing for the web. I didn't really know much about it. Frankly, I don't know how many people did. You don't want big blocks of text. Nice to throw in a little white space in there so people's eyes don't go googly, no pun intended. And then I made an offhand crack about search results, and it didn't matter what happened. No matter what you searched for, the first 5 results were always going to be from the adult industry. And I got a good laugh out of it. The people, the kids, high school kids, they appreciated what I was talking about. But the managing editor was less thrilled with it. He goes, Kyle, a little word of advice. Next time you're in front of a bunch of high school kids, try not to bring up porn. And then the little piece of advice that stuck with me was know your audience. So the important thing here I want to say is you got to know your audience now. With Google and their framework, now you have to kind of put in some work to reach those customers, reach those eyeballs that you want to. But you need to know who is the audience. As a content writer at Web4, we talk to our clients, you need X amount of pieces of content, landing pages, informational, creative, evergreen. But one point that we try to make is that we're not necessarily writing for our client, but we're writing for our client's customers. The client's already a big fan of themselves. They go to their website all the time. What we want to do is bring their customers to their website. So when you want their website content to kind of mirror them. You know, obviously they've gone to school, they know all the big 10-cent words. But the problem with that is people aren't looking for those 10. I will say they are looking for the 10-cent words, but only as a way to help explain what those 10-cent words mean. So while you want to be writing for your audience, people who are looking for you, you want to make sure to be as concise about it as you can. Because frankly, other lawyers probably aren't searching for other lawyers online. They aren't typing in lawyers near me. Chances are they're probably part of a network of lawyers. They work with other lawyers. They work either alongside them or against them. They know other lawyers in the area, and they know what lawyers specialties are, and they know who they can work with. They're probably not opening up a phone book or going to Google to look for a lawyer to work with. However, you are the expert. You still need to have, or your client needs to have, an air of expertise. So that's when you need to bring up words like deductions and depreciation and declarations, because that's what people are looking for. They want to know what that stuff needs, why they need that stuff. And if you can give them that, that SEO experts can use to help find out what people are looking for. Important keyword phrases. Sometimes we refer to that as low-hanging fruit that we can then turn around and make, as we call it, easy wins. We say easy wins, but it does take time for those wins to appear. All right, so I'm assuming people might be going into seizures now with this animated GIF, so let's move on. Now it's time to write. Compelling content is more than just a handful of keywords and search phrases shoved together. The whole point of this presentation was to talk about how to write good content. And since we're, about 20 minutes in, I've already failed several basic rules of writing. In the journalism world, I buried the lead, as they say. In marketing, you're supposed to find out what the people want and just give it to them. A friend of mine said, like, even in the music industry, they say, don't bore us, get to the chorus. But what I've tried to establish here is, in order to write the good content, you need to consider what makes Google happy, but also what helps your clients bring in potential customers for themselves. So this whole background is kind of getting around to why we write the way we write when it comes to content. And here I am talking about how to be concise and reach as many people as you can. So I'm going to go the other way. I'm going to try to come up with the most tenuous analogies I can for how to write good content. So the initial consultation with your client is kind of find out a little bit more about them, of course, but also what their clients are looking for, what their pain points for their clients. So there's your big field now. You have a large swath of neatly mowed grass. Then the SEO crews come in with that information and chalk the lines. Google has provided the referee and linesman. Now it's up to you to manage the players, otherwise known as content. But what if you've only managed football teams and now you're on a soccer pitch, or Lord help you, a baseball diamond? I mean, geez, there are no two baseball fields that have the exact same dimensions. Sure, the diamond is all the same, 90 feet by 90 feet, but everything else, is up for grabs. I mean, it's kind of a weird sport to begin with. This is the only well-known sport in the U.S. where the defense constantly gives the ball to the offense. I mean, look at these guys. screwy, just a screwy sport. Tenuous analogies. So consider all of the research, the first drafts, the edits, and so on as practice. When the final game plan is in place, you trot the players out on the field and let them play. Consider all this talking with the clients. Can there ever be too much practice? For me, there's no such thing as too much information. Because as I talked earlier about pillar content, no matter what you have, you may not be able to use it for a landing page, but it might work perfectly on a blog or a short video on how to install gutters. We have, and then transcribes those meetings. Since everything now is done via Zoom, like we're doing right now, so are our client meetings. And this is an absolutely great way to get all of that information down. I know it helps me a lot, even though I've been in the newspaper industry, been writing for over a quarter of a century. I still only use 2 or 3 fingers to type. And when I'm taking notes during an interview, I don't think I've ever spelled a word correctly. But that's what Grammarly's for. It goes back and helps me with that when I go back to review my notes. With apps like Fireflies, you don't even need to worry about that anymore. Although it never hurts to take notes still in case as a backup. Consider it kind of a good cop, bad cop interrogation with nothing but good cops. At the end of the conversation, there should be enough information to create months worth of content for your client. Now, once you have that information, you kind of have to figure out when and where to use it. And of course, there are tools to find out what people are looking for and how they're looking for. Take this is an example it's a SEMrush Writing Assistant. You can put in a keyword, create SEO friendly content. And then what it will do, it goes out and looks at that search phrase and returns a bunch of information from what has been returned on those from those search terms. It gives you an overall perfect score. You can see the readability here. How many words? 1,700 in this case, when the target is 1,400. There are also ways to figure out how the tone of your article is. Like we said earlier, content for an attorney may be different than for a plumber. And that's okay, because that's what .47 words need to be written, and they only give you 2 keywords to go on. So that means you need to come up with another 1,445. I mean, you didn't expect machines to write everything for you. One other way you can get some information, get a better idea of how to write something, because believe me, in my time at Web4, I've worked with 25, 30 different clients, and I knew just about nothing about all 30 of them. But it just takes time. You got to research this stuff. And sometimes looking at the competition. If they have a competent digital marketing program, chances are they're using all the same tools you are. They're taking good notes just like you are. Because you just can't have a 13-hour conversation with your clients at the top of every month to talk about every little thing they do. I know there's no such thing as too much information, but sometimes you can get too much information or try to get too much information during an interview. And there's also something I'm going to touch on a little bit later. But obviously, you're never going to want to copy the competition word for word. A, you'll be a cheater. Nobody likes a cheater. B, you could get sued. Nobody likes to get sued. And C, Google will recognize that and maybe blackball you. And nobody likes to get blackballed. So, sure, use the information you get from your competitors, but just make the content your own. And you also don't want to steal from yourself. But I'll get into that a little bit later on. So here we have. So we have the solid foundation of what the client's about. You have all the tools at your disposal for what their customers want. You have recommendations from the SEO experts, and the best way to get those potential customers for your client to their site. Yet there's still a blank canvas. I had a discussion about this very thing a little bit with two colleagues of mine a few weeks ago, one of which is really, really super smart. We talked about how all this info and guidance and keywords and the length of the content, it might feel a little stifling for those that are maybe have more than one creative bone in their body. I like to look at it as this. Okay, you've got a canvas. You've got 800 words. And there should be a side note, too, that SEMrush or any of the other tools aren't infallible. You don't have to, if it doesn't make sense, you do not have to follow them to the letter of their law. But they are nice guidelines. So with those guidelines, I try to be creative in the way I can bring it all together. You know, it may only be able to work on a 3x4 canvas with 3 specific colors. But for me, the creativity comes in bringing all of that together, bringing in different colors, maybe even combining colors, and crafting content that satisfies the searcher's intent. So it's time to start painting, Michelangelo. But you should probably have some kind of idea of how to write. Put some thought into it. This is an example from Finnegan's Wake, the last book published by James Joyce. You know, after 3 lines, you begin to see why it was his last. Actually, it was because he died shortly thereafter. But still, I guess he was using a little poetic license when it came to his last work. Now, coming back to what we're talking about stealing from the competition. Let's say your client has 5 location pages throughout Washington. Regardless of what it is. And what you want to do is write content for those locations. So you write something for Vancouver concrete sculptures. Okay, it's very well done. Now, don't turn around, take all of that content and search and replace for Vancouver for Spokane, and then make that another page. Google will see that. That's known as keyword cannibalization. Duplicate content. Google will see that and you'll get dinged for it. So don't steal it for your competition and don't steal from yourself. All right, in addition to all the information that you got beforehand, consider the let's go back to the sports analogy, halftime. Halftime is when you get the notes back from the client about whether they liked the content or whether they thought it sucked. In the right direction, and the analytics that come down the pipe in a couple of months will tell us if we're on the right road or not. But I almost want to know a little bit more, I guess, when it comes to the sucks part, is if it's information that's just wrong, factual. You don't want to be incorrect, and that's when the feedback can really comes in handy. If somebody says, "Hey, yeah, that's great," but they don't tell us that they are stopping service that they provided, that piece of content is going to be pretty worthless, because people will come looking for that particular service, and then when they discover that's no longer offered, but it's still on their website, it can get pretty annoying. I know that that's happened. I've run into that before. Maybe you have as well. And it makes you think, well, you know what? I really don't want to work with those people anymore. Anywho, you can take that information at halftime, put it into the content, and send the content out on the field once again. Okay. So we've got all that information. We're a good coach for our soccer team or football team. But the best way to become a good content writer, or any writer, is just to keep doing it. You can't write, if you're writing something once a month, that's a good start, but it's just going to take you that much longer to become a good content writer, or producing content that people are interested in. And eventually, the more you write about a client and their customers, the more you become an expert on these things. I knew a roof covered a house. That's about it. But now I can talk to you for hours about ice dams, and how they can create black mold inside your walls, and how it can pull your shingles completely off your roof. It's pretty fascinating stuff, actually. And I kind of get a kick out of that anyways. But there's also got to be a point of, you want to become an expert in what you do. Your client's an expert. You're never going to know as much as your client, but you can certainly get close. Sorry, I'm going to get a drink of water here real quick. So the more you write, the more you become an expert. And that's pretty much the most important thing you can do. It doesn't, frankly, it doesn't matter if you want to be a director, TV personality, hockey player, beer inspector, or whatever it is you want to do with your life. The important thing is to keep doing it. First, it helps develop your tone and how to quickly and efficiently jam words together. I remember when I was with the newspaper, I decided to go back to school, and it was amazing how much faster I could write a 600-word essay after writing a 800-word game story in a half an hour. It really, writing over and over again, no matter what you're writing, will always help your writing. Funny how that works. But there's another reason why you want to keep writing for your clients. This is an example of a highly stylized sitemap. You can see there in the middle is the home page, the green dot, and then you've got the main service pages. Your site, the more pages, I guess let's clarify that, the more pages with relevant content on your site gives you more of an air of authority. There should be real content on the site. You can't be copying yourself like our friend Ray a couple of slides ago. It should all be relevant. It should all be its own content. It shouldn't be duplicated content. And the more you write, the more and more Google will see that your site is growing. Another way is your site is always new. It hasn't been stagnant for 2 years. There's always some new information going into the site. And frankly, you're giving more information to the people that need it. So writing really plugs a lot of holes when it comes to content writing. But unfortunately, not everyone can write content. Not everyone can dunk a basketball. Not everyone can direct a movie or lose 20 pounds of COVID weight. And as far as writing goes, I mean, I've never written the great American novel. A few years ago, I the idea of writing content that pleases the Google algorithms had absolutely no bearing on how I wrote anything. But sorry, Stephen A. Smith always cracks me up, I guess. Just like any other creative endeavor, and writing is a creative endeavor, practice makes perfect. Eventually, all of that content writing begins to pay dividends, and the best kind of dividends, Google dividends. A client I used to write for, Columbian. But a couple of 2-3 months ago, it was discovered that when people searched for precast concrete dry wells, what I had written was the number one choice, or number one, I guess, return result. Now that search was less than 600,000 total search results for that phrase, but still feels pretty good being number one. Sometimes this isn't going to sound great, but sometimes it feels pretty good to be a number two as well. You can see here, what are digital audio workstations? This is for a client, Recording Connection. I wrote a lot for them. They basically are an educational institute that will bring, if you're interested in learning how to make electronic dance music, they will place you alongside a mentor, a pro audio engineer and music producer in their recording studio. And as I was writing for them, it dawned on me that whether I was talking about trance music, house music, trance house music, whatever it was, every one of those genres and subgenres of music, the best way to create it was through a digital audio workstation. I didn't know what that was. I mean, I did at that point after writing for them for a year, but they didn't have anything on the site about digital audio workstations. And so it dawned on me, hey, you know what? We could really use a digital audio workstation page on the site. The account manager agreed, the client agreed. I wrote it up, and it provides interior links for your page as well, which also helps. But after a couple of months, I was the client didn't tell me that. All of the research didn't tell me that. I just felt like it was needed. And there you go. And that's another thing about becoming an expert. You will begin to see content that's missing, content that needs to be there. You don't need a machine to tell you that. Okay. You don't have to always be tethered to what the apps are telling you. Anywho, just again, right now, artificial intelligence that can write, that will write content for people. But to tell you the truth, I'm not too worried about right now, because some of the tools I use right now argue with themselves about whether or not worksite is one word or two words. So while they're busy bickering about that, I'll just go on my merry way. Although, oh, here we go. So when we talk about the AI writing everything, it kind of reminded me of the infinite monkey theorem.
This is 1,000 monkeys working at 1,000 typewriters. Soon they'll have written the greatest novel known to man. Let's see. was the best of times. It was the worst of times. You stupid monkey. You shut up. This is 1,000 monkeys.
So you can see that's what it is. Roughly 1,000 monkeys and 1,000 keyboards will eventually, the theory goes, write all of the greatest literary works known to mankind. Dang it. All right. Things were going so well for me. All right. So they will eventually reproduce all the greatest literary works of mankind. And that's a theory, obviously, because monkeys only live so long. And frankly, I don't know that you could keep 1,000 monkeys together enough. Well, maybe they could reproduce Finnegan's Wake. That seems most likely than anything. But a couple of rascally college students decided to put this to the test. So what they did is grab, I think if I remember right, 6 or 7 monkeys and a keyboard, and the results were less than promising, should we say. Now, this quote is from Wikipedia. Go Wikipedia. Not only did the monkeys produce nothing but 5 total pages, largely consisting of the letter S, the lead male began striking the keyboard with a stone, and other monkeys followed by soiling it. Thanks, Wikipedia. That #1 spot is well earned. But, you know, that's one of the great things about being a content writer. Sure, it doesn't pay much, but look at what they let you get away with. I'm just kidding, Kevin. I'm very happy that you hired me, and I'm very happy with where I'm at. But now the bad news. Sorry to jolt you with all the love for Kevin Getch and bring you to an unhappy little kid. But there is a reason I saved this for the very end, because if you'd heard this at the very beginning, you may not have stuck around. There is no magic bullet. There is no magic bullet for writing compelling content. Believe me, I have spent years looking for it. It's just not out there. I guess it's more, you need a 6-shooter or maybe even a semi-automatic. You need a bunch of different magic bullets. Interviews with clients, using tools that help you find what kind of keywords people are looking for. Just keep writing, becoming an expert, learning more about the clients. So no, there isn't one magic bullet, but there are several tiny magic bullets, I guess, that if you keep shooting them, eventually you'll start writing the content that your clients will like and that their customers will read. And by doing that, you'll continue to produce relevant content, and you'll be able to put yourself or your clients in the best possible positions to succeed. All right. Thank you. And usually, I guess I would return this right back over to Kevin.
Thanks, Kevin.
But I want to hold on. I want to make sure to get this last little thing in here. This is from the very end of Ferris Bueller's Day Off. And of course, the -30- is what used to be used, and frankly still is, to let you know when the editorial content was done. The editorial copy was done when it was given to editors to edit. So now I will send it back over to, let's see here, participants. I'm trying to, Kevin. Believe me, I'm trying to.
No worries.
There we go.
Perfect.
All right. You are now the host.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. Yeah, I mean, it's crazy just how critical content is. We write, I mean, you know, it's all about providing value for the client, right? And so the first question is know your customer, right? Like you said, like, so I love that, is understand the customer, what they're looking for, which is all the keyword research and really understanding what they want. And then it's about delivering on it at a high level. So I really appreciate that. And what, you're going to say something?
Oh, I was going to say, so yes, you need all that information, but you can't have it reading like Finnegan's Wake. I mean, that's kind of the know your audience and know who you're writing for. So I just want to make sure, it's I guess there's two sides to every coin.
Yeah, I want to argue with that, but I have a really hard time. Like,
we can't. When someone who looks as good as we do, we shouldn't be fighting, Kevin.
That's true. That's true. If anyone has questions, feel free to throw it in the Q&A section, and happy to have Kyle jump in and address any of those questions. In the meantime, for me, so I wanted to ask you a question because I have challenges, as you know. No, I'm just kidding. I'm writing a book right now, right? And I have such a hard time writing content. I can speak content very easily. And so that's usually what I'm doing, whether it's using Google Docs and I'm like turning it on to record and I'll just speak everything, right? Just speak it all out. Or I'll use an app where you just record it and it transcribes it or whatever. So I have that content. But I've also found that when I sit down and write the content, it does a couple things for me. One is it allows me to even clarify even better what I want to say because I'm way on it. But the problem is I get stuck on that one paragraph for 30 minutes. And so I guess my question to you is how do you, when you're writing text like that, and I'm sure you're going to say practice. I already know you're going to say this. How do you write and not stop to edit as you're going through, like as you go?
Well, practice. I'm kidding. I think about it's a great question, and I've actually run into that. I ran into that today, writing something for one of our clients. You get stuck on a spot, and my background, coming in from writing high school sports, is you would get back to the office after getting your notes and interviews, sitting down and jamming that out because you know what? That's going into the paper tomorrow. And so while that isn't as prevalent for me, one thing I do learn is when I do hit a paragraph where I'm stuck, all right, I've hit a wall here. It's, what do they say, that it's the height of whatever to, keep banging your head against the wall and expect a different result. So what you need to do is then turn around, walk a different direction. So maybe there's 3 sections of this content piece I need to write. I'll jump down to the next paragraph because I've got all kinds of stuff in my head running around about that. So once I exhaust all those ideas, then I can go back up to where I was stuck. And maybe now that all those other ideas were out of the way, maybe the ideas I need now are front and center.
Perfect.
Don't stop. Don't stop. Don't stop.
Just keep writing. Just keep swimming. Like Dora, is it Dory? Not Dora the Explorer, but Dory. Is it Dory?
Oh, Dory. Yes.
Just keep writing. Just keep writing. Well, with that, I think that's a perfect ending. We don't have a lot of questions in the queue, so I want to go ahead and finish with that. And thank you for your time, Kyle. I appreciate you jumping in and giving us your presentation and your wisdom. So I'll see you tomorrow.
Oh wait, I got to come back into the office. Oh man, I never would have agreed to this. But thank you for the opportunity, Kevin.
Online. All right. Bye, everybody. Thanks for joining us. Bye.